got an interpreter.
Someone asked, it's all very interesting collecting in the public domain blue plaques, but where's the conversation part?
Well, at the moment, that's often happening on sites like Flickr and things, places around the website, because we don't want to try to host the conversation too much. But that's partly coming. And on the mailing list, we've got people who are talking about the buildings and using this as a starting point to have these conversations. But I guess, yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because often we can't have these conversations, these dialogues, until we've got the information. So the first step, and in some ways the kind of the thing that gets people initially motivated, is just releasing the data and releasing the information. And that in itself is a collaborative task. But then from that, you can do things. So, for instance, on this page here, whilst the text of the plaque goes on to a sentence or so, we wrote some software to split it up, to pull out the individual things. So you can see the other theatrical wig makers who have lived and died around the UK. Or you can see other people born in 1861 and where they live. Or kind of more interestingly, perhaps, you can see whether Willie Clarkson had any other plaques commemorating him. So in some instances, we've been able to piece together a picture of one historic figure who may have lived in one house for some period of time. He may have worked somewhere else in the UK, may have gone to school somewhere else. And there's all these different memorials to this person and his life scattered around the UK, but in a non-kind of joined-up ways. We not no way of finding out the connections between these things. Partly because lots of different institutions manage different bits of it. And so they all do their own separate thing, and there's no one trying to document the whole picture, the bigger picture. And drawing connections is one thing that the internet is really good for. And from these connections, stories emerge, and people are curious to find out other things that have happened. And to show how things can get connected across the web. Flickr very generously have made it so that now when you do tag a photograph on Flickr with the tag that we give you to say this is this plaque, they added just here a little link on the right-hand side that says this is a plaque and links through to our website. So Flickr are collaborating with us, which for a big organization, Yahoo, to collaborate with a small group of people who built something in a weekend, just goes to show the desire there is amongst big corporations and community of interests to forge connections and to use the web as a kind of a big platform rather than lots of separate different websites. I'm going to show one more example, I think, and this is a site called Freebase. The URL is freebase.com. And again, this is reasonably new. It's been around for a couple of years, but it's only just starting to really take off. And I find it quite interesting that this is their homepage, and the thing they use to illustrate what Freebase does is a picture on the left-hand side from the film Da Vinci Code, and then linked to that is the Museum the Louvre in Paris. And then also linked to that is the actress Audrey Tautou, the location France, and the dog breed of the poodle. So it kind of goes to show the threads that can be drawn between things. But I find it interesting that a museum is kind of up there as some places where these connections can take place. Linking a popular film with a breed of dog. I mean, that's the kind of place that museums have on the internet if things get connected together. So I've been using Freebase and collaborating with other people to try and represent some museum content as much as possible and draw some of these connections. And one of the things I find the connections can be strongest is with exhibitions. And I do find generally that museums and institutions are really bad at keeping a good record of the exhibitions that they've had, and often when they close, all trace of them disappears from the website and you can never find out anything that's taken place in the past. So on Freebase now there's an archive of all the exhibitions that have taken place in various institutions around the world. And it's by no means complete, so if you do have data or you're willing to contribute, feel free to join. and sort of adds the exhibitions that take place in your venues. But there is some data there already, and this is stuff that hasn't been added by me, so I don't know how to pronounce this. Rijksmuseum? Rijksmuseum. Someone has added 18 exhibitions that have taken place there, which isn't too bad. But for one of them, which is called The Glory of the Golden Age, Dutch Art of the 17th Century. Did anyone go to that exhibition? I think it was 2000 to 2000, April to September 2000, according to the data we've got here. So within that exhibition, someone has catalogued all 200 of the paintings that were displayed in that exhibition. And quite a lot of these paintings, these exhibits, have their own page on Wikipedia, and from those you can find out other links to other things, to other exhibitions they've appeared in, or to the artist, or to the subject, or to the style of painting. So this is really taking museum content and embedding it in the web, making it a real part of the web, and enabling people who weren't necessarily interested in museums to find out about stuff through following this thread that they end up there. And people who are interested in museums might follow a thread and end up finding out about poodles. So it kind of, all these different stories, these connections can take place. And this only happens through people collaborating and contributing this data and building this database and telling these stories. Kind of the final two examples are ones from museums themselves, and I'm going to use them to illustrate the difficulty institutions have about deciding whether to be part of this wider web or whether to, sometimes it's worth going and doing something on your own. So the first is a site called ArtsBabble. The address is artsbabble.org, and it came from the Indianapolis Museum of Art in Indianapolis in the US. And they've built this site which contains videos about art and artists. So they've done lots of really high-quality interviews and features about arts, and they're providing them on the site. But it's not just about one museum. They've partnered with other museums, other art museums across the world to show this really rich video content. And I spoke to them, and one of the questions that I and other people had was why they decided to go ahead and build a platform for sharing videos, when we all know there are plenty of other platforms out there already for sharing videos, like YouTube and Vimeo and so forth. And the answer they gave me, I think, is reasonably convincing. They had a few practical problems in that they wanted to show these videos really high quality, and at the time, YouTube didn't enable that. The videos were practically very small. Also, YouTube limits things to 10 minutes, whereas they wanted to do more in-depth, kind of longer-form pieces. But more importantly, they had the feeling that their arts content, which they did share on YouTube, and a lot of this is also on YouTube, was being lost in the world of YouTube, and wasn't easy to find. There wasn't the kind of culture there of kind of discussing it in a appropriate manner, and things didn't really get linked to, so they wanted to draw those connections together. And I think it does a really good job of that, and they managed to do it on a remarkably small budget, on a remarkably quick time scale, building these connections with other institutions and showcasing this video. I think it's a really good example of a museum really building a platform and committing to keeping that platform alive and building upon it. The other one comes from the UK, and it's a website called Creative Spaces. The web address I'll read out in case you can't read is bm.nmolp.org/creative spaces, or it might be quicker to Google it, although it doesn't appear that high in Google, so it may take you a while. And this was another collaboration between museums to build a platform. And the way they describe the platform, I'll read out to you. It says, connecting with your favourite museums. Creative Spaces connects you with 9 UK national museums and galleries, allowing you to explore and comment on collections, upload your own content, and build and share collections with others. And you can do things like search for content, start a group, watch a few videos